It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
Let's talk about housing decisions while you're going through an inflationary period.
Yeah, I think this. So we have a lot of young team members here, early on in their career team members here at Abound in the Money Guy, and they're like, "Man, guys, I hear you, inflation, and I want to get on this train, and I want to be a homeowner, and I want to do these things, but it's hard right now. It is like a very hard thing." So a lot of people are asking questions around, do I still do it, or do all of the old rules still apply, or are there new rules now? Because there's some unique things going on right now in the housing market.
Well, the first thing, when I'm looking at any type of moment in time, I say, why is this happening? I always want to know, just like I'm asking you to figure out your why on your financial life, I'm always going, why? It pays to be curious. What's going on right now to create this situation? And housing's kind of unique. And you're going to notice a theme here. Scarcity drives a lot of this.
That's
and
right.
what do I mean when I say scarcity? First of all, there are some population changes occurring in our country right now, and where, like, I can tell you right now in Nashville, where we live right on the outskirts of Nashville and Franklin, it feels like my neighborhood has a lot of Illinois people here from Chicago. We have a lot of California. We have people coming into Tennessee. And the thing is they're coming from areas where the cost of housing was substantially higher. Yeah. So when they come from California to Tennessee, they're like, your houses look like they cost a nickel. So that's one thing. So you have influxes of population coming in, but there's also another scarcity element. Housing construction, think about new homes, especially for tract builders or production builders that are more corporate focused, not your local builder. They typically can turn a house around in about 4 months. Yep. The spread because of supply chain issues, it's taking these same builders 12 months. Yep. I've heard of 14 months. I mean, these things, they are controlling expectations because they're having supply chain. That is exasperating the situation even more. So understand the why, but this also leads to this might not be something that happens forever. Because good thing about humans is we recognize there's an opportunity, and we will catch this up. The supply chain will not always be an issue. More builders, people will decide they want to be builders. This will catch up, so you need to be careful. And we want to talk about what does that mean when you're in these unique times, and how should you do it right?
Yeah, and if you are a financial mutant out there and you're hearing things like houses are getting multiple offers at way over list price, and they're waiving appraisals, and they're moving quickly, and people are stretching, your financial mutant spidey senses should start going off a little bit, because we don't know exactly what it is. We don't know how it's going to play out, but there's something very unique going on. And so I think especially for young people or people getting into their first home, you need to be very careful right now that you understand the variables that should go into your decision of whether or not permanent housing, is a solution that is right for your circumstance.
Well, first thing, take inventory of what benefits you have that maybe a lot of people that are driving this price increase don't have. And one of them is time and flexibility. So if you're a person that lives in a community, and maybe you're living in an apartment, or you already have a smaller house, but you want to upgrade because you've got a growing family, and you look at your situation, you go, look, I'm already here. Yep. It's not like I'm trying to move my family across the country. I'm right here, right now. If it takes 12 months to 14 months to build a house, I could probably do that. I can be a little more patient, because we are seeing some strange distortions here in the Nashville area, that because we have so many people coming in that need a house yesterday, they will pay whatever. They'll bid it up. It's not uncommon to have 10, 15, 20 offers, and it's a feeding frenzy. Meanwhile, like across the street from your neighborhood, there's a brand new neighborhood being built. And yes, there's still going to be a lot of demand, but you could go in there. You could put an offer to build in there. Yes, it might take, like I said, 14 months to build it.
But you can at least get in.
But you can get in, let them build the house without you getting the feeding frenzy of everybody getting in there. Pay attention, because time and flexibility might very well be rewarded right now.
And so then after you figure out how flexible your timeline is, you need to think about your secondary timeline, not just like how long before I need to be in the house. Realistically, how long do I think I will be in this location? Is this something where I've already bought the farm and I've got the kids in school and I've got the job that's going to be the career, I'm going to be here forever? Or are you in a place in life where you don't know what next year is going to look like? You don't know what 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now might look like. Depending on which one of those appropriately describes you, should very much affect your decision if you're willing to go out and make potentially the largest purchase you will make in your entire life, at potentially one of the most expensive times in history to make that decision.
Exactly. The longer you can stay in an area, the better, because it's going to moderate. I always love, like, I'll pull this back to financial investing, like in the stock market, but it has a great analogy to housing. We've done so many studies that when you look at financial market performance annually, it does look like that yo-yo.
Yeah, it's like sporadic.
But when you look at it 10 years, 15, 20 years, it's amazing how smooth things get. Well, the same thing happens with housing. Is also a very large financial decision making, and right now we're in the short term super volatile changes going on with price, and we're on the way where it's going up. So I would tell you, look, if you are only going to be in the area, the neck of the woods, the neighborhood, the community, less than 3 years, you probably need to hold on tight and not really be trying to buy a bunch of property or doing things, because you just don't know what the situation's going to look like in 3 years.
It's illiquid.
I would be careful, because it's a very illiquid investment. Now, look, right now it seems like it's the most liquid thing in the world because there's so much demand, but you have to plan for the long term, not these short-term momentum things that you could get left holding the bag. 4 to 7 years, look, okay, you can now consider buying in real estate, but I don't want you to lose your head, because Bo mentioned spidey senses earlier. It drives me crazy. I don't know what I would do in this current environment, because to tell somebody that I can't do due diligence, meaning I can't go make sure that the pipes on your air conditioner are too small for the unit so it will never heat or cool right. I can't make sure there's not water sitting under something in the basement that's going to rot through or cause problems. That would bother me, because Bo has already also shared, this is some of the biggest financial decisions you will make in your life. To take away my ability to vote with my feet because it's not a good deal, it would gnaw at me to no end. But that's the situation we're in. So that's why I would say, if you are 4 to 7 years, you can buy, but don't lose your head and get caught up in the antics and the frenzy that's going on right now.
And I would say, don't lose your head even when you've heard of other people that have made that decision and it's worked out okay for them. Because I'm hearing that all the time. Oh, well, I have this person and they built a house and they moved in, and then they recognized 3 months after they moved in that the house was up 20%. So they sold it immediately. Yeah, that may have worked for them and they may have gotten lucky and it may have been okay. I would not bet my financial future. I would not bet my army of dollar bills on that happening. Sound financial decisions are sound financial decisions when things are crazy and exciting and nuts, and when they're scary and frightening and uncomfortable. That's why you really, especially in one of these sort of euphoric housing times, you really need to check yourself and make sure you're following fundamentals.
So people are hearing me, they've heard me talk about 1 to 3 years. They've heard us just talk about the midterm 4 to 7. The 7 to 10 is going to cause even more discussion, because I do think it's interesting. I have a lot of discussions with a lot of our staff here that are in that stage where their income's going up rapidly. They know because look, if you work at Abound Wealth, you're here a lifetime. We know you're going to be here over 10 years. And it's one of those things where you have a good career opportunity. You know you're going to be in the community. What is somebody who's got over 10 years? How do you look at this? And I always tell people that if you're in a situation where you know your income's going up rapidly, you know you're going to be in the community, this does get much harder, because in addition to price increases and things going up rapidly, we also know we're in a unique time here that interest rates are at historic lows. So I'm giving you permission to, especially if you're going to be in the area for a super long time, you really need to think about, hey, maybe this is not the ideal time to buy, but maybe because of the interest rates and some other unique things, I have to hold my nose and know that this is, I just have to do it for the long term. And we have some illustrations to help you understand why interest rates are huge when it comes to buying houses.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't recognize how impactful that could be. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot. I have a question. I don't know if you're going to know the answer to this off the top of your head. Do you remember what the interest rate on your parents' first mortgage was?
You know, here's the thing. 1978 it was, not a crazy inflationary period, but it wasn't only until recently. So if I had to guess, it was probably around the 6% range.
Do you remember what the mortgage rate on the first mortgage that you took out was?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I bought my first house in 1998, and I thought I stole it because realize this was the period where they were trying to slow down, the economy because it was moving so fast in the 90s that we had gone to a period where interest rates on mortgages had gotten over 7.5%. So I was now on the backside because they overdid it, and so they started dropping interest rates. My first mortgage was at 6 3/4, and I was ecstatic. I thought I had just gotten away with something at 6 3/4. Now you can imagine when you have interest rates around 3. We're like, how did he even get excited? But I'm just telling you, your worldview, you'll feel a shift. But interest rates can change, and they have been much higher historically.
Yeah, my first house I bought in 2009, and I think my first mortgage was 5.75%. That's not all that long ago. That's in recent memory. But right now, that sounds crazy. Well, here's why it matters. Here's why interest rates can have a huge effect on the decision that you make. So let's assume that you follow the Money Guy metrics, and you know that when it comes to housing and housing carry cost, you don't want to spend more than 25% of your income on housing. And you've determined that number from you equates to a monthly mortgage payment, monthly housing cost of $1,500. Well, let's assume two unique interest rate environments. Let's assume in one environment, your interest rate is 2.5%, super, super low, like what we've seen recently. And then let's assume in a different environment, maybe a more, what I'm going to say, normalized environment, the interest rate is 6%. When you look at the mortgage that 6% interest rate will allow you to have, it's $251,000, right? So $1,500 payment, $251,000 house. With interest rates at 2.5%, that same monthly payment would allow you to take out a mortgage of $380,000.
We were talking about that in planning, Bo. That's a over 50% increase. So, and I think you said it best, is that's like going from a 2,000 square foot house to a 3,000 square foot house. And there is zero difference in your monthly carry costs because interest rates are making up the difference. Right. Guys, you can see that makes a big difference, especially if you're in that messy middle, you're raising children, you need a little extra space so you keep your sanity.
That's right.
This is super important. So it obviously impacts purchasing power. What about how the monthly payments? Because what if maybe I don't have the ability to be flexible on the size of the house. I just know in my market, the minimum cost of the house is this. What's the impact on my monthly payment with this purchase?
Or exactly what you said. You have a family and you know that you need to buy a house that's $380,000 because that's what it's going at. And you know that if interest rates are 2.5%, my monthly housing cost, my mortgage payment will be $1,500. Well, to buy that same size house with a 6% mortgage rate, instead of paying $1,500 a month, you're paying almost $800 more, and almost $2,300 a month for the exact same house, and all that changed was interest rates. And now, potentially, if $1,500 was your 25% number, now you've blown through that. So I think a lot of people right now are faced with this decision. If I do think interest rates are rising, and I do want to get on this side of the home ownership equation, should I do it? How do I make that decision? I think the way that you do it is you have to go back to exactly what you said. Am I less than 3 years? Am I 4 to 7 years? Am I 7 to 10? Am I greater than 10 years? You have to figure out where you are in that timeline, as well as answer some of the variables like, okay, what do I realistically think my income trajectory is going to look like? How sure is my job? How sure is my family circumstance? What are the things that might change? This is a really hard time, I think, to be a first-time home buyer.
Yeah, and that's why you have to really take into account all the variables and ask yourself. I mean, you have to kind of play some what-if scenarios. Is that, look, I know because of interest rates, it's going to allow me to have a lot more purchasing power. I might be overpaying for this house, but with this house going to lose 15%, 20%, 25%. And then you look at this and you say, wow, even if I get it wrong on the perfect purchase price, there's a 50% price, monthly carry cost difference between the two different interest rates. That can play some crazy tricks on your brain. And that's why the longer you have, Bo, I'm echoing what Bo just said, the longer you have, the more grace you get in this decision making. And that's the part I worry about the people, because it's pretty common. People change careers a lot more than they have historically. I just don't want you to be in a community for a short period of time. Real estate market prices fall down because interest rates go up,
and then you're stuck.
And you're in a bad situation. You can't make those career choices. You can't make the financial choices because you just didn't get it right on this big financial decision.